Perfect. So we are pleased to be joined by Theo Fleury. Played in the NHL for over 1,000 games, had over 1,000 points with Calgary, Colorado, Chicago, and the Rangers. And we're pleased to be joined by him today. So Theo, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
All
Good to
right.
see you.
Good. So yeah, I usually like to take it back to the beginning. Obviously you grew up in Canada, in Saskatchewan, and your dad was a big senior hockey player. So just kind of take me back to, those younger years and when you got into the game and kind of how you fell in love with the game of hockey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad was a really a fantastic hockey player, and back in the '60s there was only 6 teams in the NHL, which kind of there was only 120 jobs in the NHL at that time, right? So senior hockey was big in Canada, and there was a lot of senior hockey teams that could have went to the Montreal Forum and kicked the crap out of the Canadians back then, So and yeah, so we settled in a really small town in Manitoba, and one day I was walking home with one of my classmates, and said to me, "Hey, we're having our first hockey practice tonight. Do you want to play?" And I was like, sure. So I went home, asked my mom if I had any gear, and we searched around the house and found an old pair of skates and some stinky, smelly hockey gloves, a broken hockey stick, and I put all this stuff in a pillow sack, went down to the local rink, and put on all this gear for the first time, and stepped on the ice and didn't fall down, didn't struggle, and almost instantly fell head over heels in love with the game of hockey. And so, hockey, I guess, was always the one constant in my life that made me happy, made me feel connected, made me feel a part of something, and all that. And, I think the next year I scored 100 goals in one season, and, the rest is, the rest is history.
So when you were playing in those younger times, like you said, you just, you scored 100 goals in one season. Did you ever have, kids that you played against or played with that were like, hey, I think you got something here. I think there's something special.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky too, because I basically played with the same 13 guys and had the same 3 coaches for 9 years. And what happened was we became this, amazing little hockey team, and we won 3 provincial championships in hockey and 3 provincial championships in baseball with the same 13 guys, same 3 coaches. So, it was the ideal situation. And, not only did we learn about playing hockey, but I think more importantly, we learned about life and being a part of a team, and, caring for your teammates. And, when you stepped out of line, there was consequences for your actions, those kind of things. And so, very early on in my life, I got the blueprint for success, and, I carried that, throughout my whole entire professional life. And, also in my post hockey life is, um, that those 3 guys that coached me in minor hockey, they created a leader. And, that leadership thing has been, always a constant thing in my life. And it's really important, especially in the work that I do today in the trauma and mental health and addiction field, So, I always, I'm very grateful that I had that, experience with those people.
Exactly. And then, so you go to the WHL and you play in Moose Jaw. Obviously the WHL is known for just a hard-nosed play. It's a tough league to play in. Is that kind of how you developed, you talked about the blueprint for your game. Obviously you're a smaller guy. So being in that league, was that kind of just something where you said, hey, I got to play a tough, hard game, if I want to survive here?
Yeah. Well, uh, I was always the smallest, right? And, that was probably, the greatest adversity I faced as an athlete was everybody telling me all the time that I was too small and I was never going to make it, right? But, um, when I look in the mirror, I don't see somebody who's small. I see somebody who has extraordinary talent. I was always willing to work hard, but I think more importantly, I competed at the highest level every night. And, it was about winning to me. It's why we uh, put the equipment on, is to win. That's why we get paid the big money, is to win. It's not to half-ass it or
Yeah.
be mediocre. It's about winning. And when you get into those situations where you have opportunities to win, you have to make the most of them. You ask Dan Marino or, guys like that who had amazing careers, but, at the end of the day, they didn't get the rock, they didn't get the ring, and so, um, like I said, I played my first year in the Western Hockey League. I was 5'3", 125 pounds, you know, and I was playing against guys like Stu Grimson, Ken Baumgartner, Dave Manson, those guys. And so, um, I would say early on in my minor hockey career, I didn't have to play that style of physical because I was so much more talented than everybody. And I basically had the puck from the time they dropped it until the final buzzer went at the end of the night. And so, and when you get to the higher levels, everybody can play and everybody's big, strong, physical, and all that. And so, that's where I developed that, that style of game was, um, I was going to initiate the contact,
Yeah.
as opposed to them initiating it too. And, I never backed down, and obviously it was a different era. So we could use our stick as a great
Yeah.
equalizer and all of that, as well. So yeah, all those things combined together, made for a pretty awesome, professional hockey career.
Yeah. And then obviously you won a World Junior Championship with Canada. And then they have that famous story when the lights went out and there was that huge brawl. I mean, what was that experience like for you? That must have been crazy.
Yeah, I think looking back on that experience, especially now, people, be like, what the hell happened? Like, this is crazy, But, what people don't understand was every night in the Western Hockey League, we were either having a bench clearing brawl or a line brawl every single night. So, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. But more importantly, I think what happened the next year was pretty special, is that we went right into Moscow, into Russia, and the Russians had a line of Fedorov, McGillney, and Bure was
Jesus.
their number one line, and we beat them in the same rink that Paul Henderson scored the goal in 1972, which kicked off the Canada-Russia rivalry, and yeah, and so. Um, And yeah, Joe Sakic was our fourth line centerman on that team that year. So
That's when you know
I
you're
think we
deep.
I think we had 12 first round draft picks that year, and yeah, it was just an amazing experience, And it's my most favorite championship that I ever won, because it
Yeah.
was the first one and it was on the biggest stage, and it really, like I said, it really sort of set me up for
Right.
the rest of my
Yeah.
professional career,
And winning that
because
world. Yeah.
because
Winning.
because making the world junior team when everybody said I was too small and I wasn't ever going to make it, I think it really started to open people's eyes that, maybe
Right.
someday this guy can, help a team somewhere in the NHL. And, 1987,
Yeah.
I got drafted by the Flames, and, you know, then a couple of years later, I was carrying a Stanley Cup around the Montreal Forum. So, you know,
Yeah, and that's where I was going to get to next. Obviously, you got drafted by Calgary in the 8th round in 1987. But before that, you had 3 straight years in Moose Jaw, your last 3 years where you had over 100 points.
Yeah.
Did you think you could go, higher in the 8th round? Were you thinking that's where you were going to go? Did you think you could go higher, or what was that kind of whole draft experience like for you, as far as where you thought you were going to go in the draft?
Well, I was picked 415th in the draft, actually, because the first year I was eligible, I didn't get drafted. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was picked 166 the following year, right?
Yeah.
So 20 rounds of the draft went by. Okay. And, all I ever wanted was an opportunity, right? And obviously the Flames gave me that opportunity. And what was interesting was, when I went to my first training camp in Calgary, nobody in the organization believed for 1 second that I was going to be a 15-year NHLer with 1,000 points and 1,000 games and all of that. And, what I always tell young players, doesn't matter what number, right? Doesn't matter what number. What matters is where you finish, right? And today, I think I sit 61st in all-time scoring in the NHL, being drafted 415th in the NHL draft, right? So, it's what you do with that opportunity. And so, my first training camp in Calgary, I went from the organization not believing to the organization believing. And, I signed a contract in December, and shortly after that, I went to the World Junior and captained the World Junior team to the gold medal. And then when that season was over, I went to Salt Lake and we won the Turner Cup that spring. And then a year later, won a Stanley Cup. So I had 3 rings in 18 months.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that winning was just kind of embedded right from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and it started in Russell.
Right.
Started in Russell,
Exactly.
Manitoba, right?
Yeah.
I won 6 championships in Russell, So in that, that theme, carried its way through my whole professional hockey career as well.
Yeah. And so that year that you guys won the cup in Calgary, you had gotten sent down after camp. If I believe correctly, got sent down and then you got called back up. When you got called back up, what was kind of your mentality there? Where you're just like, this is it, I'm not going back down. Like, I'm here to stay in the league.
Yeah. Well, I knew that this was probably going to be my one and only chance and opportunity, and I had to make the most of it. And, but we had such an awesome team in Calgary too. Right. So,
Right.
And the best part was when I got there, they didn't expect me to score. I didn't need to score,
Right.
I was a 4th line centerman that was supposed to provide a spark and change the momentum in games. And if we scored, it was kind of a bonus. And so I sort of fit in with that, what maybe the one last ingredient they needed to make that run. First game of the playoffs against Vancouver, Gary Suter broke his jaw. And so, I played on the point on the number 1 power play for the rest of the playoffs. And so, it was unfortunate that Gary got hurt because he was an unreal talented, unreal player, but it gave me an opportunity to get more ice time and created more opportunities for me to get points and score goals and all that. But yeah, great team, great people, great experience. And, that first year winning the cup, really kind of set me up for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, obviously you had, like you said, you had a lot of veterans on that team, like, Lanny McDonald, Newendike, Gilmore, all those, legends. And how much did they help you, in that first year, in the NHL?
I couldn't have been mentored by a better group of guys, you know. They taught me what it was like to be a professional and how to get myself prepared to play and, you know, and all that. So, and like, you know, I said this earlier today, you know, the quality of people, you know, yeah, we were a great hockey team, but, you know, man for man, you know, you're not going to be around a better group of people, and the whole organization, from the ownership to management to, you know, to the staff, to the trainers, you know, everybody was awesome. And not only that, we enjoyed being together, we enjoyed playing together, and we enjoyed being away from the rink together. And, you know, it was a really close team, and close teams usually win.
Right. Exactly. I mean, how special was it to win that cup, you know, in Canada, especially in Montreal, where you guys actually won the cup, you know,
Yeah.
the mecca of hockey. I mean, what, as a rookie, I mean, that must've been just an unreal moment for you to win the cup as a rookie in Montreal.
Well, at the time, you know, I didn't realize the magnitude of what just kind of went on and what happened, right? Because I got called up on New Year's Day, and then 6 months later, you know, we win the Stanley Cup. And so, and I was, what was I was 20 years old. So, you know, not mature enough, not, you know, not, um, and then, you know, I played another 14 years, and, you know, the closest I got after that was we lost to Dallas in game 7 when I was with Colorado. And then Dallas went on to beat Buffalo for their one and only Stanley Cup. So, you know, I only got one sniff of the
Right.
cup, you know, the rest of my career. And so, you know, now that I'm an older guy, you know, and I get a lot of time to reflect and reminisce, you know, I realize, you know, how important that was, and how much I learned, and you know, and all those things, you know, looking back on it. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is we probably could have won maybe one or two more
Yeah.
Stanley Cups, but, you know, it's why, you know, it's
Yeah.
why it's the hardest trophy to win, man.
Exactly. You never know when you're going to get another opportunity.
Yeah.
And then moving it to 91, obviously you have that famous goal celebration in that first round against Edmonton, Battle of Alberta, in overtime. You know, you intercept that pass from Messier, and then you go 5-hole on, I think it was Grant Fuhr. Um, and then you have that famous celebration where you're sliding on your knees across center ice and everyone's piling on you. I mean, in that moment, you know, was that just kind of a reaction that you had to score in the goal, or was that something that you
It
thought
was
about at
not
all, or
premeditated
no?
whatsoever. No. Um, you know, I like, goal scoring's hard, you know, not everybody can do it. And, you know, I love to score goals, and I love to score big goals, because that's what it's all about. You know, when the pressure's at the highest point, you know, I always wanted to have the puck on my stick, you know, 5 minutes left, game tied. I want the puck on my stick, because you know, that's what every guy dreams about, right?
Right.
Whether you're playing ball hockey, street hockey, or road, whatever you want to call it, you know, you're playing in a game 7 or game 6, and it's going overtime. And, you know, so you've already played that out many times, you know, in the tennis courts, or, you know, whatever. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
And to score it against our biggest rival, you know, and in the 80s, you know, the Stanley Cup went either through Edmonton or Calgary. So,
Right.
you know,
It was one road in.
yep.
I you know, doing research here, I'd listened to you do an interview, and you talked a lot about just the mental aspect of the game, and that was a big part for you. And like you just mentioned, like playing scenarios in your head, so when that moment came, you were prepared for that. And I know obviously the game now in the NHL is very analytical. You know, it's a lot of X's and O's. You know, analytics, numbers, all that kind of stuff. Do you feel like players now and teams now, coaches now don't really take into effect the mental aspect of the game and how big that is for players?
Yeah, I think, when you get to the highest level, 5% is ability. Everybody can play, everybody can skate, everybody's big, everybody's strong, everybody's fast. And what separates the superstars from the great players is what goes on between your ears. And that's 95% mental. And, the mind is a very powerful tool because you can tweak it to a point where you think of yourself as invincible and powerful and mighty and all those things. And so that's one of the things that that made me the player that I was I was mentally tough and I was mentally strong. And uh yeah, I was ultra talented. The game was easy for me because I had so much talent. But what set me apart from every other small guy that ever tried to play in the NHL was right here. It was my attitude. It was how I prepared, how I visualized, how I did all those things when I wasn't, actually playing, that prepared me for those big moments. And I didn't get nervous and I didn't get scared. It was like I wanted to be in those situations, but I played all those scenarios out in my head before I got there, so that when it happened, it wasn't unfamiliar. It was familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then taking it to, obviously you played 11 years in Calgary. And then you left there in 98, 99, and you signed with Colorado. Was that emotional for you to leave Calgary after spending all those years there, winning a Stanley Cup, having a lot of success? And then what drew you to Colorado? Obviously, they were super talented. They had a lot of guys.
Well, I got
traded.
So what happened was I was going into my free agent year and we couldn't find a number that both the organization and myself could live with. And so you get one chance at free agency, and that was my one chance. We couldn't get a deal done. And so I got traded to Colorado. And so I was there for 5 months and went on a Stanley Cup run with the Avalanche. And, I remember the first day I walked into that dressing room, it was like being at an all-star game. So, but yeah, getting traded was probably one of the hardest days of my life. Calgary, I had deeply, deeply planted roots in Calgary, and I wish I could have stayed and played my whole career in Calgary, and I still live in Calgary. So, Calgary's always been a very special place. And, but going to Colorado was an amazing experience to play with Joe and, Patrick Waugh, Claude Lemieux, Adam Foote, Milan Hajduk, Chris Drury, all those guys, was pretty amazing experience.
And then, like you mentioned, you went on that cup run. You had 17.
I forgot about Peter Forsberg.
Peter
Forsberg. Holy cow!
They go up and down the roster.
Yeah, it was a scary team. Adam Marsh, Dale Hunter was there too. Yeah, it was unfortunate that we didn't figure out a way to win, but
you had a good combination of grit and skill on that team.
Yeah, it was the whole package.
Yeah. But on that run, you had, 17 points in 18 games, and then that led you to the Rangers after.
Yeah.
Obviously, you went from going to Canada to Colorado to now New York, which is obviously a huge, huge market. I mean, what was your thinking when you got to New York and saying, like, this is an Original Six market? It's one of the biggest, American, hockey markets there is.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, well, first and foremost, that New York coveted me so much, and when July 1st hit, I was the first phone call that they made too, right? So, and then, they threw they threw out that big money contract, and I couldn't resist it, and I really look forward to the challenge. I loved playing in Madison Square Garden as a visitor, and so, you know, playing there 41 nights a year was pretty special, and it's by far one of the best organizations I've ever played for as a player. I don't think you can get treated any better. Um, and the fans were, they were awesome. And, but unfortunately for 3 years, I spent the majority of that time in my own zone, picking the puck out of my net and handing
Yeah.
it to the referee. We just, we signed all those free agent guys, and we just couldn't find the chemistry. And we were a really bad defensive hockey team. We had lots of offensive talent. We just, like I said, we couldn't keep the puck out of our own net. And, for 3 years, it was frustrating for sure.
Yeah. And in New York, obviously it's a big city, but I mean, when you're playing in Calgary, you're getting recognized everywhere you go. In New York, was it similar or was it not like that?
No, as soon as you get one block away from Madison Square Garden, you're just
You're
a New
done.
Yorker like
Yeah.
everybody else, which I loved.
Right.
Being in the bubble and in the spotlight all the time, it can, it takes its toll on you for
Right.
sure.
And what's the difference between playing, in a Canadian market versus the American? Because obviously you got the experience of both. So
Yeah. Well, I think you can be a lot more anonymous in New York than you can in Calgary. You go from a city of what at that time, maybe 1 million people were here in Calgary. And then you go to New York where there's 14 million people,
yeah,
and there's 200 media outlets as opposed to 3 in Calgary, um, and there's exponentially more restaurants in New York than there are in Calgary, and um, so yeah, it was just a different experience all the way around. But um, New York was great, loved it, loved putting on the red, white, and blue, and playing for an original six
yeah.
team and playing at Madison Square Garden. Doesn't get much better than that.
And then I want to take it to obviously your Olympic success in '98. You guys finished fourth, and then in 2002, you avenged that on U.S. soil with Team Canada. Obviously, you talked about Colorado being an all-star team. This team was loaded in 2002. I mean, Lemieux, Sakic, Yzerman,
I played on
Niedermayer.
I played on God's all-star team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, that team was just disgusting talent. And you guys won the gold there against the US, in Salt Lake City. Obviously you had roots in Salt Lake before
Yeah.
that. How special was that for you to obviously win the gold with Team Canada? But then also, having roots in Salt Lake City too, that must have made it, all the more special for you.
Yeah, my whole life sort of came full circle. I started my professional career in Salt Lake with the Golden Eagles, and and then sort of finished my career by winning a gold medal in Salt Lake City. So yeah, that it's really hard to explain that whole experience because um, the amount of Hall of Fame talent
Right.
uh, that was on that team was, I don't know, it was mind blowing, and well, when you think about it, the fourth line on Team Canada was Brendan Shanahan, Joe Newendike, and Theo Fleury.
That's pretty
It's
damn
crazy.
good.
Like 1,700 career goals, 34,000 career points in the NHL, and we're the fourth line on Team Canada.
Crazy. Yes. Did you just, I mean, when you were there, I mean, that whole run, did you just look around and just were you able to soak that all in? Like, I'm here with, all of these players and, fighting for a gold medal for my country. Like, that's got to
Yeah.
be special, that entire run for you.
Yeah. I was like a fanboy,
Yeah.
you know. I had to pinch myself every day and say, you know what, am I actually here? And then in the dressing room, I sat beside Mario and Joe. I sat in the middle of Joe Sakic and Mario Lemieux,
Yeah.
two of the greatest hockey players, ever. And yeah, that whole experience was, we got off to a bit of a shaky start, but once the medal round started, we were just kind of like, okay, it's time
Turn it
to
on.
buckle up, time to get organized. And we didn't look back, and to beat the Americans, and because they beat us in the 96 World Cup of Hockey, and so it was our
Right.
first sort of opportunity to get some revenge, for that defeat. And yeah. So, and the Americans were no pushover either, man. You look at their lineup, they were
Oh, yeah.
stacked too. So, but when you have guys like Mario and Joe and Stevie Eiserman and that whole crew of guys, you're not going to
Yeah.
lose.
Which brings us to, fast forward to, you played finished your career in Belfast.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, playing in Ireland, and, the hockey there, and kind of, finishing your career off there?
Yeah. Well, the hockey wasn't very good, but the life experience was awesome. Like we played in a building called the Odyssey, which was, I don't know, 500 feet from where they built the Titanic
Oh, wow.
ship. Yeah. And, we would pack 5,000 people into that building every night. And, they sort of have that soccer mentality. So, the fans sang from the opening puck drop until the very last, time ticked off the clock. And, it was fun. It was a great experience. And Ireland's a beautiful,
Yeah.
amazing country. And, so we got to do a little bit of exploring and do a little bit of traveling while we were playing there. And, and I basically told the owner and coach that, you know what, I'm done with practice. I don't want to practice anymore. And I said, if I show up at practice, don't expect a whole lot out. And but they were great.
Yeah.
The fans were great. My teammates were even better. And all in all, it was an awesome experience.
And then you ended up retiring in 2009 with Calgary. How was that important to you? To retire, with the organization that you came into the league with.
Well, I needed to get some dignity back, because
Yeah.
the way I left, the game the first time was certainly
Right.
not the way that I wanted it to be. And so, originally I started out, the process to get reinstated. I didn't expect to go to a training camp or any of that stuff. And, it just sort of evolved in that way. And, Daryl Sutter actually called me a couple months before I got reinstated, and, caught wind that I was, working out every day and skating and all that stuff. And he said, well, if you get reinstated, why don't you just come to camp? And so the night before training camp, of course, I get reinstated. And then the next day I'm at a training camp again, which was kind of weird, but, yeah. And, I got to leave the game the way that I wanted to leave the game in the first place. And,
Yep.
Grateful and thankful that the Flames gave me that opportunity, and, it worked out well because I got to retire, as a Flame. And yeah. And then, then my book came out.
Right.
And then, I haven't really stopped since
Yeah.
then, sort of put me in a new dimension and a new career path. And,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been probably more rewarding this part of my life than the first half.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Your book came out, I believe back in 2009, Playing with Fire, which I read a couple years back. It was great. I loved it. You kind of just told your whole life story from the beginning, all the way to that point in your life. And, you know, I- what kind of transpired? Did you always want to write a book when your career ended? Was that something that you thought about at all? Um, or was that just something that kind of just
It
happened?
just happened. Like how it all came together was kind of bizarre, and when I sat down to write the book originally, I was just going to talk about my hockey career. I wasn't going to talk about all the other stuff, but um, through the process of writing the book, all of it came out, and then going out on the book tour and running into so many other people who were inspired by the book to tell their own story of sexual abuse was, I guess the real reason why I wrote the book. And like I said, I've been in this space ever since, helping people, overcome their trauma, overcome their mental health and addiction issues. So it's been, like I said, it's been incredibly rewarding. And, it was funny because, when I left the game, all I had was a grade 12 diploma from Vanier Collegiate in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and I didn't have a plan B, and so the book really, put me in this place that I am today, and gives me the opportunity to help, lots of people, which is great.
It is definitely great. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming on today and joining me. I appreciate the time, and good luck going forward with everything that you're doing. Obviously, you're doing a lot of good work and helping a lot of people. So,
I appreciate it.
That's great. That is great.
And where are you at in the world?
I'm in the U.S. I'm in Rhode Island, so small
Nice.
state. Yeah. So
Brian Berard.
Yeah, Brian Berard, the number one overall pick,
I
from
play with him in New York.
Yeah, he's I gotta get him on at some point. But yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time, like I said, and look forward to seeing obviously more of your work in the future. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Matthew. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, have a good one.
Okay. And tag me when you get this all together on social media, and I'll retweet it. And
I will. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, man.
All right. Bye.
Take it easy. Bye.